Good evening, everybody. It's so lovely to be here. Monday nights, every Monday night at 7:30, and we're very grateful to our hosts, Rabbi Yacobian and Congregation Torah Vachesed, for welcoming us here while our precious Torch Center is being rebuilt and repaired from the floods of Hurricane Harvey. The topic tonight is an important topic because everything we do in our lives depends on this one trait, and that is willpower. Willpower is such an incredible trait that we possess, that one possesses. Everyone has willpower to different degrees, which is why our traits are called midot. Midot in Hebrew are measures, because everyone has a different measure. One person has willpower, at a 10 out of 10, and one is a 6.5, and one is a 2.1, and it's like, everyone has different measurements in that trait. It's like kindness. Everyone has kindness in them, but not necessarily everyone is a 10 out of 10 in their kindness. And what we're trying to do in these Mussar classes is to try our best to improve in our understanding of these traits, in our practice of these traits, so that we can become the best possible people we can become. So the first thing we need to do, like we've done in our other classes, is try to define what is willpower. All right? So what is willpower? Everyone has a different idea. We have to get on the same page for us to move forward.
It's the ability to decide whether you should do something or shouldn't do something, and being able to refrain from doing things that are wrong and go ahead and do things that are right. Make the decision to do things that are right, or proper, or acceptable.
Not to eat that delicious piece of cake.
Not eating that delicious piece of cake. Yes. What's your definition of willpower?
I think the distinguished lady in the front had a good one. It was the will not to do things that are bad or in some cases evil, and to actually do or keep doing the way of truth.
Okay. So sticking to our convictions. Okay. What's your idea of willpower?
What is willpower? Willpower is something that we have. It's an inner thing that we have that we try to express to do things that are better. I mean, hopefully, we'll use that willpower to do things that are better.
But
and there's just, it's like fighting against your Yetzer Hara.
Okay, but here's the thing: we know people who have a willpower to do bad.
Yeah.
To steal, to hurt, right? To do terrible things. So look, you have people who are controlling millions and millions of people, right? And they're not necessarily doing it out of the goodness of that. They have willpower, they're very strong willpower, but not necessarily for good. So we see that this power could be used to both ways.
Okay. I was thinking of willpower is to be able to overcome our weaknesses.
Okay, so willpower is overcoming our weaknesses.
And to be aware of our strength as well as our weaknesses and work.
So it's awareness, you're saying? It's awareness.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's to restrain yourself from doing something that may be good or may be bad.
Okay.
Maybe healthy. Like going to the gym every other day, or not eating a cheeseburger or hamburger or whatever, even though you may want those things, that's not good for you.
Okay,
or
okay.
Vice versa, from doing something good.
Great.
I think I'm responding to what you said. I think it's the ability to be able to decide what you're going to do and to what degree. Because you're going to say, yes, I've got the willpower, I'm not going to have dessert tonight, and if I do, I'm just going to one bite, or I'm going to split it with you, or, that you're going to decide that there's going to be some degree of, what you're going to do. I know I speed, but today I'm only going to go 10 miles over the speed. So for me that's a big deal. But it's, the degree as to what you're going to do or not do at all.
Okay. So I think that everyone is right in their definition, like usual. Okay, as usual. I think everyone is right in the definition, but I think everyone is talking about what. I see over here a couple of ideas. Lawrence Levy is saying willpower is the strength of character to give one's free will to and follow the teachings gained from Torah. Okay. Sarah Leiser, by the way, it's great to see everyone here, is the ability to control your choices, right? Which is very, 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 very true to what we're going to get to in 1 second. So very, very good, Sarah. Thank you. So I think the true definition of to have restraint, Peter, great to see you. Thank you. They're all correct. I think everybody's saying the right. We're getting to the right idea. But what is the central point of it? We're all leading towards it. I think the central point of it is not letting things get in your way. All right. So this can apply to everything. You want to finish reading that book. Right? The willpower is that force that will not let anything get in your way from completing your mission. You want to go on a diet, right? So you want to go to that gym, like you're mentioning, right? It's that nothing will get in your way of going to the gym. Nothing will get in your way from your desire to not eat that cupcake. So the willpower is the strength that you have to overcome things that are distracting from what you want. And we're going to see how we attain it. But what we're going to always have to differentiate when we're talking about willpower is differentiate between the immediate and the long term. Right? What's the distinction between the immediate and the long term? It's this distinction between body and soul. Right? The body wants now. I want it now. All right? So I'll give you a few of them. The body seeks comfort. The soul seeks growth. The body wants immediate gratification, while the soul has no problem with delayed gratification. The body seeks short-term reward, while the soul is perfectly fine with long-term reward. The body's temporal pleasure, while the soul is eternal pleasure. Material pleasure versus intangible pleasure. Self-centered, the body, right? And the soul is focused on others and God. So we see this very strong contrast between what the body is and what the soul is. What will is I want to get to a certain stage or a certain state, and something usually body related is getting in the way. So here we're having these two forces that are going to be fighting one another. We have the force, and by the way, the same spiritual power applies to that same diet we're talking about. That same Danish we don't want to eat because we know it's not good for us is the same struggle between body and soul. And again, it depends on the will. How much do you want it? And if you wanted a tremendous amount, you're ready to give up the short term for the long term. Think of a child. You tell a child, you know what? When you do this and that, you'll be able to get the lolly. You clean up your room, you make your bed, you are on time for the bus 2 weeks in a row. You can go to the store and buy whatever it is, whatever incentive you have. Why does it work? Because the motivation is really strong. Wow, I can go to Toys R Us and I can buy something, whatever I want. It's a very powerful motivator. So it's a stronger motivator than being lazy and not make my bed. You got it? Yes.
But aren't you actually saying we're going to reward your good behavior? Isn't that what you're doing?
Oh, for sure. For sure we're going to reward the good behavior. But again,
that adds to in your willpower?
The idea is the reason why it works for a child is, again, because it's very tangible.
Right. And
But because it's tangible, they're ready to overcome the short term for the long term. Okay? When I say, you know what? I need to lose that weight for my own health. So many people, you can talk to them and it goes in one ear, out the other ear. Right? Because, yeah, health. Yeah, I've been hearing it for the past 100 years. Right? You know, the past however many years I've been on this earth, I won't say, hey, eat healthy. Okay. But if someone goes to a doctor and the doctor says, listen, if you don't lose this weight, you're going to die. Right? Suddenly we hear that message and we lose it because we have no choice. So that motivator is a very strong motivator. The question is, how do we get that motivation? How do you get that motivation for simple things? Right? So what's going to motivate you to finish that book when there's no reward when you're going to finish the book? You can say, oh, when I finish the book, then I'll drink my coffee. Well, that could be a motivator. I really want my coffee. Right? So you could, and that's a tool that I've used for many years to get myself to finish certain things that I was lazy about. Right? The only way I can do a certain thing, I'll be, you know, you want to play a game, you want to make a certain phone call, you know what? Do what you have to do first. Do what you really want to. What you have a barrier between you and accomplishing, and then you can do it.
So what you're saying, delay satisfaction until you accomplish the goal you want to accomplish.
Well, that's a technique. It's one of the techniques in how to strengthen that willpower. Anybody here familiar with the 80-20 rule? The 80-20 rule is a simple rule. You get 20% of the work done in 80% of the time. You get 80% of the work done in 20% of the time. Sometimes it's 90-10, sometimes it's 95-5, right? Why is that the case? Because you're motivated. You have no choice. You have a deadline. Right, but if we created that superficial deadline every day, we'd be excelling in every area. The problem is we don't have that deadline because we don't have willpower. How many people do we know who finished, 4 years of college in a year and a half or 2 years? Why? What's different between them and us? Well, they had willpower, much stronger willpower. So the question is, how are we going to get to the point of having that force, that power of will?
So what you're saying then is willpower and the motivation in successful people are connected.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Think about it. You have how many people run for office, public office, every year? Thousands of people, right? And many times, we had how many people run for president? We had about 50 people, right? Right. No, but really we had about 21, 22 people. Only one at the end of the day won, right? You had many from one side, a few from the other side. So what was the strength that individual had, whether it was to win the mayor or the governorship or the Senate seat or the Congress, or to become a Congress person, or to become president, or to become prime minister or a member of Knesset? Right? So, yeah, many times it's connections. Many times it's the dirt that goes behind it. But usually, it's the force of that will. It's that will. And when they get motivated to something, there's nothing that's going to stop them. And by the way, we all have that power. It's a power that every human being has. The question is if we know how to harness it and use it to our benefit.
Yeah, and it's also the way you do it.
It's also how you do it, correct. The way in which you do it. 100%. All right, so let's begin. So the most important part of will is setting a goal. Right? It's going to be one of the exercises we're going to try to do today at the end of class, is to pull out a piece of paper and set a goal. Doesn't have to be a grand goal, right? We know in business they have, you call in a business development person, professional, and they assess your company and they set out long-term goals and short-term goals. Why do they do that? Because it's not enough to have long-term goals. How are you going to get there is the question. Yeah, so the goal is for the company to increase its sales 200% within the next 5 years. Well, that's very ambitious. How are you going to get there? Right? So you have to have salespeople, you have to have more product, you have to have more, better marketing, you're going to have all of these little things that are, so you're not going to just arrive that in 5 years you're going to be at 200% growth. It's the same thing, overcoming anger. How in the world do you want to overcome anger in 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 10 years from now, if you don't set short-term goals? So first thing we have to do is set the long-term goal. And then the second step is going to be, the second goal is going to have to be the short-term goals that are going to lead us to that long-term goal. So just to answer a question here that was asked online, it's Rabbi, does our goal have to be specific? I want to go to college, but to get to a place I want to be, should I choose the school already? I don't think it's necessary to choose the school already. It's a great question, Ben. I don't think you have to choose the school. I think you have to want it. The school is one of the stepping stones you're going to use to get to your goal. And at the right time, it'll come. You'll find that success. It says, we'll see this through the teachings of our sages, that the way in which you want to go, God will direct you. God will lead you. Okay? But first you have to have that will. And if you have that will, you're going to get there. You'll get there through miraculous ways. Because, as we see, Ein davar ha'omed lifnei Ratzon. There's nothing that stands in the way of will. Nothing. When someone wills something enough, nothing stands in its way. It also includes, by the way, getting into the school you want. Oh, well, they said no. Okay. So many people will just turn around and say, okay, they rejected me, I'm going to the next school. No. I'm not going to give up. I'll reapply, and I'm going to drive them crazy, and I'll write them letters. Again, if there's true will, we can get it, and we can make it happen. There is a big challenge, though, is that, many times other people try to impose their will on other people. So if I have a certain ambition, right, and I need people to help me with my ambitions, I'm going to try to force you to have my ambition. Right? That's not fair. So we have to be careful about that as well. Okay, so it is a trait most essential to be a growing person. It is virtually impossible for a human being to grow spiritually, character-wise. Okay, it is impossible without will. You're not going to one day just show up with emunah. You're not going to one day become a kind person. You're not going to one day show up as a fit person. All of these require will, determination. I'm going to do it. And nothing's going to stop me. And you're always going to have challenges. You're always going to have temptations. As soon as you say, you know what? I got to cut out the meat. Right? I got to cut out the meat. What happens? You get a phone call from a friend you haven't heard from in a long time. He says, let's get together. I'm calling together all of the alumni. We're all coming together. We're having a barbecue. Right? So you know what? That's going to be a test. It's going to be a test whether or not to go. And if you go, whether or not to eat. And if you eat, how much to eat. And what usually happens is if a person doesn't exercise that will and have that muscle strong enough, what happens is they say, tomorrow I'm going to start.
Yeah.
Right? And then what happens tomorrow? By the time tomorrow happens, it's over. Right? So if a person has the will, nothing stands in the way. Yeah, and you can even end up going, it's not recommended, but you can even end up going and saying, you know what, I ate dinner already, I'm not going to eat anymore. All right? Okay. Our sages tell us, Ein davar, we said this a few minutes ago, Ein davar omed lifnei Ratzon. I believe that this is the actual definition of Ratzon. If you want to know what will is, Ratzon, it's these 4 words that precede it. Ein davar omed lifnei Ratzon. There's nothing that stands in front of will. That is the definition. If you have proper will, nothing will stand in its way. That's the strength, the power of will. Nothing, absolutely nothing, can stand in front of a person who desires, who wills something. The drive, the will, is by far the most powerful key to accomplishment, much more than skill and talent. You can have skill, you can have talent. Without will, they don't do anything. How many people do we know are brilliant and don't use half of their brilliance? That they have it, but they don't have the will to use it. They don't have the will to do something with it. They have it. So they're great chess players. They're chess master. Right? It's almost an obligation that if someone has a skill, if someone has a talent, our sages teach us this through the Talmud. Many stories in the Talmud of people who were given great skill and talents, and those who used it were rewarded greatly for it, and those who did not use it were punished for it. You're given a talent, you have to use it. But the difference between them is the will. How motivated are we to excel, to become better? David, you're not comfortable with this. What's the matter?
Well, I was just thinking, can you have the will and not the ability, though? I would love to be the best golfer in the world, but my ability is never going to let me.
Exactly. You know what? You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Attainable goals, right?
If it's unattainable, you can't strive for it.
It's not. Well, you may become a much better, but you know what?
I can't be the best.
That's right.
There's certain things that I will never be able to do. I will never be able to be a swimmer like Michael Phelps. I'm sorry. As much as I want to, it's impossible. And I would love to play in the major leagues, but I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen.
So you have to temper sometimes.
So you have to set attainable goals, don't you?
Exactly. So you have to be realistic. You have to be realistic with those with that will. But it doesn't mean that I cannot become a fantastic baseball player. Nothing's standing in my way. But starting at the age of 40 is not ideal, right? Usually that's when they're leaving the sport, not going into it, right? Yeah. So certain things that you're going to be technically limited, right? You're just not going to be able to do it. So it's a good question. You know, the Guinness Book of World Records is a book of will, right? It's people who didn't stop till they made it. They didn't say, right? They didn't say that it's okay for me to be mediocre. They said, no, who's the best? I'm going to be better. And I'm not going to stop till I'm going to do it. And we've all seen inspirational clips of people, you know, who were 1 second short, and they said, you know, I'm going to win that gold medal, and you know, and they're, you know, they're half a second short, and eventually they make it. Right? There's nothing that stands in front of the will. That's what will is. Will is a force that we all have within ourselves that we need to learn to use like a battery, right? You have to know how to use it right. And it is your motivator to keep things going and to accomplish your mission. Will is not having a dream. It is making sure you don't stop till your dream comes true. It's not about having a dream. But you won't stop till your dream comes true. Drive helps you accomplish what you thought was undoable. We all have things I never imagined, right? I guarantee you the people who built those skyscrapers never imagined that it'll actually be able to stand. They said, we're going to try. And there are people who pushed the limits and succeeded. You know, I was once talking to a real estate person. I said to him, it was the beginning of their career in real estate. So I asked him, how are things going? See, he says, a very interesting perspective. He said the only difference between buying a home for $200,000 and buying a property for $20 million is how much guts you have. That's it. It's the same thing. All right, so I said, what do you mean it's the same thing? He says, did you have money to buy your $200,000 home? I said, no. So what did you do? You took out a loan. He says, you think I have money to buy a $20 million building? I don't have the money either. Took out a loan. Right? But it's, some people are able to overcome what they have, these obstacles that are really artificial obstacles. Right? So if I were not a rabbi and I was in real estate, then perhaps I would do that. Right? But thank God I'm a rabbi. I'm trying to build different types of buildings. But many times we are our own worst enemy, many times. Because we place those barriers. We say, oh, I can't do it. It can't be done. Yes?
Willpower is also a way to avoid giving in to failure. Accept failure, but knowing that you will overcome this. Like, failure is not something that must be acceptable. You fail, it's okay, but you must have the willpower.
So it's a very important thing that you're saying. Failure, I tell this to my staff all the time, failure is not an option. Mm-hmm. Because even when you fail, it's part of your next success. Yeah. Right? You can't look at failure as being a failure. Failure has to be a stepping stone for your next success. Because you're going to have to change, you're going to have to analyze why you failed, take out the lessons from it, so that next time you change it. Now, many times it's because, especially we're in a very rapidly evolving world. Rapidly evolving. So what used to be the technology is no longer the technology today. Do you realize that 10 years ago there was no such a thing as an iPhone? Anybody realize that? 10 years ago. True. Right? 3 years ago there was no such a thing as Facebook Live. Right? YouTube. You know that Google bought YouTube for like a few $100 million, which was a joke. You know how much? Do you know how much information is uploaded to YouTube a day? Right? Unbelievable amounts of terabytes of whatever you call those bytes beyond terabytes. It's unbelievable. So yeah, sometimes the limitation is we're not advancing ourselves to help ourselves get to the next level of our success. Yes. By the way, welcome back. It's great to see you.
Thanks, Rabbi. I have a question, and you can decide it's within the realm of this discussion or not, but I'm really curious because I'm sitting here thinking about it. I'm specifically thinking about the age that we live in versus, say, generations past. Mm-hmm. Because to me, a lot has changed.
Right.
I mean, if you look at, say, the leadership of like the men, the families that were around when the Constitution was signed, I read stories about it. A lot of them suffered greatly for what they did, for the stand that they took. Versus today's day and age, the people who are in it, they're in it to win it for themselves. You know, these people make millions and millions of dollars to be
Right.
political. And the truth of the matter is, it's like if you look at people we think of as successful CEOs and people that are very high up, there's been studies, scientific studies, real ones, legitimate ones, that have found that there's some common denominators in their personalities. And many of them are psychologically not carrying traits that we would consider positive ones. There's narcissism and a lot of other isms
Correct.
that are out there.
Correct.
And I mean those people specifically that have decided, hey, I'm not going to go for that life. I don't want any part of it.
Right.
I
So,
think there's people out there
so
who
I think we're living in a generation that has a very loose definition of what success is. Right? What is success? And today, the majority of the world out there, of course not in this class, but out there in the world, the majority of people consider success a financial success. But I'll tell you that I'm not only going to dispute that, I have factual evidence that that's not true. Right? Being a good father, being a good husband, being a good friend, right? That goes a lot more in the direction of success than money.
But that all,
Right?
Absolutely.
but that all goes
Absolutely.
back to in the 70s, at least for me, that there was community. And so even if you weren't a religious person, you still had your community, and those people in the community sort of helped each other. And so when that disintegrated, then the only thing left was me.
Right, and we're getting more and more into a culture of me, because we have everything is about, you know, this. We were in Starbucks together, and we were looking around, and everybody had a device.
Yeah.
Even people having meetings with one another had devices in front of them. Right? There's no more face to face. There's no more interaction of. Okay, but let's get back into our topic here. Drive leads to actions. Right? So if a person has the will will lead you into action. Okay? When you really want something, you will be led there. Our sages tell us, when you want something, you will be led there. And this is in the Talmud that's going to be learned tomorrow. No, in 2 days from now, of the daily folio of Daf Yomi. Says the following: B'derech sha'adam rotzeh lelech ba molichin oto. In the path that one wants to go, you'll be led there. If you really desire it, you really want to go a certain way, guess what? God's there to help you. You're going to find supernatural assistance to help you get there. But what do we have to do? We have to take that first step. We have to initiate. We need to have the ambition to go and get it. Right? It's not going to come to us. We have to run towards it. We'll be helped along the way. So sort of when, you know, my little son right now is in the process of learning how to ride a bicycle. So he can't sit on the couch and say, I want to learn how to ride a bicycle. Right? It's not going to help. You have to get on the bicycle and start pedaling. Right? I'm going to be there to help him and hold his saddle right behind him, and I'm going to be running along with him and helping him, but he's going to be the one who's going to have to actually turn those pedals. Right? And if he doesn't turn those pedals, I can't help him. We, in our willpower, we have to start turning those pedals. The Almighty is there behind us saying, I'm going to help you get there. Don't worry about it. I'm right here. I'm going to help you get there. But we, again, it doesn't take away our obligation to be the rider. Sit in the driver's seat, in the rider's seat, right? And steer that bicycle and move forward. Okay? Our sages tell us that this same willpower is a double-sided, double-edged sword. Habal tameh potchin lo, habal taher mesayin lo. One who comes to defile, someone who comes to do something impure. They say, please go ahead. Someone who goes to become pure, so to speak, to do good things, They help him, they assist him. So it goes both ways. A person who wants to do bad, door is open. Again, you decide where you want to ride that bicycle to. We're here to help you along the way. Okay. An angel is created. I don't have the source written down here in my notes, but I guess you're going to have to trust me on this one. But an angel is created from every thought, every expression, and every action. When we do an action, we're creating sort of a force. It's a snowball effect. That when we start going in the positive direction, it starts building momentum. We're getting another angel. And eventually, we're unstoppable because we have all of this force pushing us in the direction we want to go. So all we have to do is get started. The biggest challenge of any of these goals we want to attain is to start. Is to pick up that phone and make that phone call. Is to fill out that paperwork, to just get started. It's an amazing thing. I've had people come to me, now I'm here 13 years in Houston, and I've had people so many times come to me and talk to me about, hi, I'm looking for a job, what do I do? I said, do you have a resume? All right, I know people who they haven't even decided if they want to leave their job. They already have 3 jobs lined up. Right? I don't think it's magic, but I think they have that willpower to make it happen. They're going to fax it. They're going to call them. Did you get it? They review it. They're just on top of it. Why? There's a will. There's a desire behind it. So if you don't have that goal, you're never going to get there. It's not going to get there on its own. A drive means my desire to accomplish number 1 is greater than my concern for number 2. Right? So whatever that object is that I desire is greater than my concern for something else. Right? You're always going to have to have an exchange. Right? It's going to have to come at the expense of something else. Right? There's never going to be a situation where you're going to get both of them. Right? Yeah, you know what? The guy who wants to build that big house, right? The guy who wants to go on that great vacation, there's going to be a give and take for it. They're going to have to work very hard to earn their money. Right? Right? You understand? There's going to have to be you can't. Right? It doesn't go that way. It doesn't work that we just. So, drive helps a person run over all fear, all worries, and all the what-ifs. Right? There are people who want to make sure they have everything worked out before they get started with the project. Everything needs to be figured out before they get started. I like to call them government workers. Okay? That's why they don't get much done. It's a good thing, right, that they don't get much done. But it's costing a lot for us, right? But there are people who say, you know what? We'll deal with the challenge as they arise. Let's get started. Let's go. Well, what if? Don't what if. Go. Okay? Ratzon, will, has special secret powers which we don't understand its reasons or causes. It's very hard for us to grasp, but there are special powers in will. Having this drive, having this ambition, having this motivation, there's a secret behind it. And our sages tell us we'll never understand, right, its reasons or its causes. How does it work? Right? We don't know how it works. But we know that there is a process. And it's like, I ask doctors all the time, I say, can you explain to me how this works? This medicine, they all tell me, I have no idea, but it works. Right? I know that if I give this amount of medication, it's what we call anesthesia, you won't feel the pain. Why it works? No clue. It just works. right? That's why if they understood how everything works, they probably wouldn't need all this medical testing. If we really understood, there would never be side effects. The problem is we don't.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? We don't really understand. So that's why there are side effects, because it's like it's a shot in the dark. We're going to try a new medication. It could work, could not work. No idea. Right? We're going to try it. If it works for enough people, that'll become the standard. Do we understand why it works in one way or the other? We have no idea. It's the same thing with will. We haven't, but we know how to use it. Right? We don't know how it works, but we know how to use it. Right? And the first step in using will is getting started. Going for it. Okay? And we'll see in a second an exercise that our sages tell us. I printed it out here. 3 times a day, use your willpower to take actions that you do not feel like doing. Right? We all have things we don't want to do. We push them on the side of the desk, or under the desk, or in the garbage. Or, if you can throw in the garbage, then fine, then do that. But there are things that you need to do, but you just don't want to do it. Right? Do them. 3 a day. That's it. And what that will do is to start off with some minor tasks that you know would be helpful to you, but you tend to procrastinate. For example, you can apply this to acts of kindness that you could easily do, but tend to put off. Or you can apply this to doing things for your spiritual well-being and to your health. After maintaining this for 1 month, you will find you have achieved greater self-mastery. Right? My grandfather says about this that you should try every day to overcome your impulse 3 times. He says 5 times, 3 times. Yeah, I've heard him say different amounts. But quoting the altar. The idea is that we have to gain this strength, this power over ourselves. Am I talking Spanish here? French? Okay, we're good? Right? Everyone's... Right?
English is perfect.
It's good, okay. Just making sure we're on the same page. The idea is that we're all very comfortable with what we're currently doing. It's an amazing thing. I was talking to somebody about a project that we're working on. And the person who assisted them in that project is no longer in the field. So that, you know what they said to me? They said, I don't think I can get this project done because the person that did it with me is no longer in the field. I can't do it. Right? Why? Anybody here buy a car, and the next time they buy a car, they buy it from the same exact salesperson. Why? Because you trust the person. Because I'll tell you the real reason. We like routine.
We like to deal with people we like.
Well,
that's
sometimes it's also we prefer even someone we don't like as much, but we are familiar with, rather than finding some random person. Right? Yes, I may not like them, right? But the idea is that when we love habit, we're creatures of habit. That's really what it boils down to. And to have will, we're going to have to break that habit. We're going to have to break our normal routines. We're going to have to do things we're not really comfortable doing and overcome it. I'm going to do it because I have a goal. And my goal needs to get accomplished, and I'm going to do it. Regardless of whether or not I'm comfortable with it, I'm not comfortable with it. We have all these reasons behind it. Right? If this is the right thing, and this is what I need to be doing, i.e., that diet, right? Or that project. Write that book that you always wanted to write. Make those phone calls you always wanted to call. Right now, I'm comfortable. I just want to live my life. Break that routine. Break that habit and get started with that new goal. 3 times a day, do things that are not in your ordinary schedule. That you've been pushing off. That you've been procrastinating. Okay.
You know, but the problem is some of us might wind up in jail.
Why? Why jail?
If they do the three things they... And I'll go back to one thing that you said. You said that...
Yeah, let me just tell you, okay? When I had I do periodical diets. One of the reasons I'm talking about this because I'm trying to inspire myself, right? So, I remember one of the diets I started. This is back like 5-6 years ago. It's like short, like a 90-day. Just get back into shape. Eat off. From the holidays of Passover and having Sukkot and Shavuot, you have all that cheesecake. You just gotta. So you have to take these little periodical diets. So and then continue to eat healthy, of course. But one of them, I started it in New York, and then I came back here. It was over the summer. My family was in New York for the summer, so I knew that if I don't start immediately, I was never going to get it going. So from the airport, I went to the grocery, straight from the airport, and I bought the vegetables that I needed. I bought the healthy food that I needed because I knew if I don't have it, I'm not. If I don't start right away, you got to break that habit immediately. Yes, you had a question.
Well, I think my best customer is somebody that comes back to me.
Right.
I treat him really well. I give him what he needs, and he'll come back to me, and he'll come back to me, and he'll come back to me. So you had stated they do it because they're coming back it's a path of least resistance. But that is my best customer.
100%, and we hope to have repeat customers. But we're talking about not when it's a good thing, when it's a not good thing. Why do we keep on going back? We keep on eating the same bad foods. Right? We know the food is not good for us, and we keep on eating it. Why do we keep on eating it? Because I like it. Because I'm comfortable with it.
Right. But you want them comfortable with you.
What?
You want them comfortable with you.
Right. You want them comfortable with you as a salesperson. Again, right. No question. That's a great tool, a great asset to have.
It's very important.
It's very important that people feel comfortable and people enjoy working with you. No question about it. However, if it's something which is no good that we're getting into the habit of, and that so that's where we have to break it. Again, there's two sides to everything. And when it's a positive thing, great. But when it's a negative thing, we have to learn how to break it. Okay. Will has the ability to pull together all of our strengths. So we have, let's say we have 100 different resources in our personality, in our personal arsenal, right? Some of it is personality, some of it is tact, some of it is, all of the wisdom, experience, right? We have all of this arsenal. When you have will, you're able to pull them all together. You're able to galvanize all of those strengths and abilities and even take the weaknesses along and make them into positives along the way. Right? Will is a force, it's a power. That if we know how to use that power, we become, unstoppable. That's what we're trying to get. Who's come to the gym tonight with me? Right.
I already got one this morning.
Will works like the push of a button, right? And it lights up the path for us, right, as we go, right? It works. All you got to do is get started, okay? The will to connect with the Almighty is already one of the closest levels to God, right? Meaning, just the will to be connected to God, right? So one of the great Hasidic masters gets a knock on the door after Yom Kippur. Sorry, it was the day after Tisha B'Av. So he goes to the Rabbi, to this Hasidic master, and he tells the Hasidic master, he says, Tisha B'Av meant nothing to me. Tisha B'Av is the day we mourn the destruction of the temples, all of the terrible tragedies that befell the Jewish people. He said it meant nothing to me. And he starts crying. He starts crying. Not the Rebbe. The student. He says, why are you crying? He says, I'm crying because I don't know what to cry for. He says, then you're crying for the right purpose. Right? To know that you're weak is your strength as well. Right? To say I'm crying because for what I don't know what to cry for. Right? That's part of it. There are those who know what they're crying for. Great. But to cry because you don't know what they're crying for, you're heading the right direction. Okay. So, the will to connect with the Almighty is already one of the closest levels to God. Right? What's the idea of connection to God? If everything we try to do in our Judaism... Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Everything that we try to do in our Jewish life is trying to connect to the Almighty. Our prayer, our study of Torah, our performance of mitzvahs, it's all with the intention of getting us to a place of closeness with God. Willpower, recognizing that we are able, having the will to connect to the Almighty, I want to connect to God. You're already 90% of the way there. Just wanting to have that relationship. Okay? If you will something very, very much, to be kind or to be learned or to be happy, right? The help will come. The help from above will come. But you have to will it. And you have to get started in the process. Right? It's not enough for someone to leave. You go to this motivational speech. By the way, just for the record, do you know how much information is retained when people go to these, you go to a TED Talks? Wow, it's amazing. It's so inspirational. Right? Do you know how much information is retained?
Almost nothing.
10%?
30%.
30, that much, huh?
That's immediately after. That's once they're walking out.
Once they get in the car.
Yeah, once they're in the
It
car,
drops to 10.
it drops another 30%, right?
It'll drop to zero.
By the time, right? Really, it's very hard to retain that information. That's why people write. But it's not enough to do that. You have to actually put it into action immediately.
Yeah.
If you don't put it into action immediately, it's garbage. It's worth nothing.
Yeah.
So you may have all the wisdom, but if you're not putting it into action, it's not going to help. Right? So that's one of the reasons. It's a very interesting thing. Our sages tell us that one laughter, one mockery, can throw away 60 inspirations. Right? So imagine you're in synagogue, Rosh Hashanah. It's so uplifting. It's so holy. It's such a special time. You hear that shofar blow. And it's soul stirring. It's like, wow, it's so powerful. Right? On your way out of synagogue, you're walking with a bunch of friends and someone laughs about the rabbi's speech or mocks the guy who blows the shofar or says the cantor, it's like, right? Just a little joke, right? What happens? You laugh. You laugh, it's funny. That one mockery blows away 60 inspirations. Why? Because instead of putting it into action now, you are now diverted. And now, you're not going to put it into action. That means there's a separation between being inspired and putting it into effect. And when you understand? I remember when we would hear discourses or lectures in yeshiva, I remember it was hard to get people to talk after. Because, they're so, inspired by the words of, our teacher who was, right? It's like you want to just put it into action now. I don't want to be busy distracted with lunch and with this and with that. I don't want to be distracted. I want to put it straight into action. I want to find a way to put it right into my daily life. Put it right into action, because otherwise it's gone. You can lose that inspiration. right? What a person truly wants is what happens to him. And the reverse is true as well. After one's life, we can tell what their true desires were. You see, there are people that they were builders. They wanted to build, and they always, right? Why is that? Why were they builders? And the other guy in the coffin next to him is not the builder. Well, this was his will. That's what he wanted. He wanted to build a city. He wanted to build a community, build a synagogue, right? And the other person was just a good guy, right? You can tell the will of a person. That's what they put their focus on. That's what they put their emphasis in life on. So the question about ourselves is, do we have will? And if we have will, for what do we have will? And then set a path of how we're going to get there. And utilizing this power that we already have within us to work for us. Put it into action for us. Sudden inspiration or excitement is not will. Those are easy come, easy go. So unless you put it into action immediately, it's not going to happen. It looks like we're going a little bit over here, so we're going to stop. We're going to stop the class now. We're going to continue next week. We'll continue part 2 of willpower. Okay? It's great to see you all. Again, next week we'll be back here, and we'll be online as well. Don't worry, dear friends. We're looking forward to seeing you online as well. Please don't forget to like and share these videos if you like them. And if you want your friends to enjoy them, hopefully, then please share them. But next week at 7:30 on Monday night, and hopefully we'll be at the rebuilt Torch Center. We will see. Hopefully, we'll have good news about that. I'll keep everyone posted. But otherwise, we will be here at Congregation Torah Vachesed, and we will also be online on Facebook and YouTube. And thank you all very, very much. Thank you.